This lesson is on converting between decimals, percentages and fractions. And what we're going to do is we're just going to have a starting point as a fraction, starting point as a decimal, starting point as a percentage, so that we can comfortably move between those three things. Let's look at these two here. We're going to start with some fractions and we're going to convert them into some decimals and some percentages. So, if we didn't have a calculator, that's how I'm going to assume in this particular case we haven't got a calculator, and then I'll just show you how you would do it if you did have a calculator. So if we look at 3/5, if I was to go and write that as a decimal or as a percentage, okay, well, let's start with the percentage. If I want to write it as a percentage, I want to get it out of 100. So what I could do to make that job a little bit easier, considering I've got a 5 here, I could get it out of 10 first. So what have I done? I've doubled it, I've times it by 2. So I must be equivalent, I must do exactly the same to the numerator. I must times that by 2 to make 6 out of 10. Then I'm going to get it out of 100. How am I going to get it out of 100? I just need to multiply it by 10. What I could have done is I could have just multiplied it by 20 straight away. If I times that by 10, I get 60. And I've taken this fraction and I've written it as a percentage. If I want to write it as a decimal, okay, well, that one is 6 divided by 10. I definitely know how to divide by 10. That's when all the numbers, okay, move, okay, with that decimal point. So basically, that would be 0.6. Or I could do 60 divided by 100 to be 0.60. Or, if I want, I could do that division sum if I didn't have a calculator. So just watch. Remember, it's 3 divided by 5. So how could we write that 3? We could write it as 3 point, and you can put as many noughts as you want after that decimal point. And then remember how we divide. How many 5s go into 3? Don't go. So that 3 comes over to make 30. How many 5s go into 30? 6. Exactly. No remainder. So I have 0.6. Let's look at this next one. A third. Okay, so it's as a fraction as it stands at the moment. I'm going to turn this one into a decimal. The reason I'm going to turn it into a decimal is I know I'm not going to get that 3 to be out of 100, because I know 3 isn't a multiple of 100. So the first thing I'm going to do is to convert it into a decimal first. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do exactly what I've done here. How many 3's go into 1.0000, as many noughts as I want. 3 doesn't go into 1, so I carry the 1 there, so that's none. 3's go into 10 3 times, remainder 1. 3's go into 10 3 times, remainder 1, and I seem to be getting exactly the same picture. It's just endless 3's. So what we've got here is we've got a decimal that's recurring. We have a sign in maths for a recurring decimal. We tend to write it as a little dot on the top there to mean it's 0.33333333. Now, how do you convert a decimal into a percentage? Well, here I got them out of 100 to make it a percentage. What I can do is I can take my decimal, and so long as I times my decimal by 100, it turns it into a percentage. 0.6 times 100 is 60%. So what I can do here to turn this into a percentage is to times 0.3333333 by 100. And what would that make? That would make 33.3 recurring, going on and on and on and on. So if we start with a fraction and we want to turn it into a decimal or percentage, okay, your first move, if you wanted to, would be to turn it into a decimal by doing that division sum. Remember, if you had a calculator, all you'd have to do is type in 1 divided by 3. You wouldn't have to do that calculation. And then to turn it into a percentage, all you have to do is times by 100. So let's go through that again. You start with a fraction. So to turn it into a decimal, all you would do is actually do the division sum, either on your calculator, if you were allowed a calculator, or the actual division sum here. And then to turn the decimal into a percentage, all you have to do is multiply by 100. And you've turned it into a percentage. What we're going to do now is we're going to start with decimal and turn it into a percentage and a fraction.